8 years ago, I broke the heart of the boy I loved. Now, after 8 years overseas, Liam Hayes was finally coming home with his new girlfriend to meet his family. That same day, the hospital gave me its final answer. The cancer had won. There was nothing left to treat. Nothing left to try. They sent me home with only time. When Liam saw my mother helping me into a wheelchair, a cold smile touched his mouth. 8 years, he said. And this is what became of you. You can't even walk anymore? Disgust laced every word. I only tugged the sleeve of my down coat lower, hiding the cluster of needle marks across the back of my hand. It's nothing, I said quietly. I fell and broke a bone. That's all. Liam gave a short, bitter laugh. In that case, I'm getting married soon. Why don't you come be my fiancé's bridesmaid? I smiled as if it did not hurt at all. No, thank you. I'm about to leave for somewhere very far away. Then I patted the back of Mom's hand, silently asking her to take me home. I had barely gotten home. Mom had just helped me into bed when Liam Hayes' mother came by. Margaret Hayes stood in the doorway for a long moment, looking at me as if she had rehearsed this conversation 100 times and still could not bring herself to start. Claire, she said at last, her face flushing with shame. I know I have no right to ask you this, but I need a favor. She stopped there. She did not need to finish. I knew exactly why she had come. It was the same reason she had come to me 8 years ago. Back then, the moment Margaret found out I had cancer, she rushed into my hospital room in almost the same state she was in now. I had not even had time to process the diagnosis. I was terrified, crying so hard I could barely breathe, when she dropped to her knees in front of me. Claire, I'm begging you. Please don't drag Liam down with you. He's just been accepted into a program overseas. If he finds out you have cancer, he'll never agree to leave. You and Liam have known each other your whole lives. You've loved each other for so many years. So please, for my sake, let him go. Break up with him. I've arranged everything. I found a boy to help. All you have to do is pretend to kiss him downstairs. Let Liam see it. Make him believe you betrayed him. Then break up with him. That's all. Because of those words, the first thing I did after being diagnosed was not schedule more tests or begin treatment. Instead, I put on the coldest face I could manage, pretended to cheat, forced Liam to hate me, and drove him out of the country without mercy. Sure enough, a second later, Margaret looked at me with guilt in her eyes. Claire, please don't blame me. I had no choice. Liam's girlfriend now was his classmate overseas throughout graduate school and his doctoral program. They're perfect for each other. I really don't want to ruin such a good marriage. You know Liam. He adored you when you were kids. If he finds out the truth about what happened back then, I'm afraid. Her voice shook. I'm afraid he'll throw everything away again. So could you stay away from him for a while? You don't have much time left anyway, do you? In your condition, you shouldn't be going out. Don't you think? The moment Margaret said those words, my mother grabbed a pack of adult diapers from beside the bed and slammed it down so hard the mattress shook. Seeing that she was about to lose her temper, I quickly tugged at her sleeve and softened my voice. Mom, please. It took several seconds before she managed to hold herself back. Only then did I look back at Margaret. I can promise I won't tell Liam what happened 8 years ago, I said calmly. But I can't promise I won't see him. No, I could not promise that. Because during all 8 years of surgeries, chemo, and hospital ceilings, there had never been a day when I stopped missing Liam. When chemotherapy became too much to bear, I would clutch the old photo of Liam and me until my fingers cramped. Some nights, that picture was the only thing that kept me from giving up. I went through more surgeries than I could count, some minor, some so dangerous Mom signed the consent forms with shaking hands. More than once, I was rushed into the ICU and almost did not wake up again. Every time, Mom stood beside my bed and shouted herself hoarse. Claire, have you forgotten? You said you were going to survive. You said you'd get better, go overseas, and explain everything to Liam yourself. You promised me. When you were well enough, you said you'd let me take you to find him. If you die now, you'll never see him again. It was my mother's voice, calling Liam's name again and again, that pulled me back from the edge more times than I could count. In the end, I still lost. And Liam had a new life now. He was about to get married. But in the last stretch of time I had left, I still wanted to be near him, even if only for a little while. That was why, after I heard he had come home, I forced myself to leave the hospital. Even though the doctor had already made it clear, going home no longer meant recovering. It only meant waiting for what came next. I did not expect Liam to show up at my house right after his mother left. When I woke from a shallow, exhausted sleep, I heard his voice outside my bedroom. For a moment, I thought I had imagined it. 8 years ago, Liam hated me to the bone. He had once stood outside my house for 3 days and 3 nights, waiting for me to come out so he could grab me by the throat and ask why I had betrayed him. When I cried and told him I did not love him anymore, he punched through the glass window in the stairwell. He never laid a hand on me that day, but from then on, he despised me completely. If he saw me in the hallway, he turned around and walked the other way. Even passing my front door made his expression darken with disgust. He stopped going to the little corner store we used to visit together. He hated me so much that whenever someone mentioned my name, his face would go cold. "Why are you bringing up Claire?" he would snap. "Maybe you can stand her." "I can't." On the day he left for the airport, I stood in the pouring rain just to see him one last time. When he saw me, he only sneered. Then he threw the matching rings we had bought together at my feet, along with the phone that held every photo of us. The screen shattered against the pavement. He left without looking back. Yet now, 8 years later, he had come to my house on his own. A moment later, through the crack in the bedroom door, I understood why. Liam was holding his fiancée's hand. "Mrs. Winters," he said, his voice flat and controlled. "Are you still angry about what happened 8 years ago? Is that why you don't want Claire to help us choose a wedding planner and pick out rings? I stopped loving Claire a long time ago. I'm over it. Besides, we grew up together. Even if we couldn't be lovers, there's no reason we can't be friends." As soon as he finished, the woman beside him spoke with a gentle smile. "Mrs. Winters, Liam has already told me everything about him and Claire. Yes, Claire cheated 8 years ago, but they were young. Things like that never happen for only one reason. I'm sure Liam had his flaws too. And honestly, I should thank Claire. If she hadn't let Liam go, I never would have met such a wonderful man. So there's really no need to hold on to what happened back then. Besides, I was the one who suggested asking Claire to help with the wedding planner. Liam and I haven't been back in 8 years, so we don't really know how things are done here anymore. And if we leave it to the older generation." She paused, then smiled as if she had said something charming. "The taste level might be a little hard for me to handle. 8 years ago, when I had just been diagnosed with cancer, the thing I wanted most was for Liam to forget me and move on. But now, hearing him speak so calmly about what had happened back then, hearing him mention me as if I were nothing more than an old mistake, I still felt something twist quietly under my ribs. He had told his fiancée everything about us. He had not hidden a single thing. That should have meant he had truly let go. My mother, meanwhile, could no longer bear listening to Vanessa bring up my cheating over and over again. Every word sounded polite on the surface, but each one carried a hidden blade. Mom's eyes turned red with rage. Her lips trembled several times before she finally snapped at Liam. "You and your mother really are the same. Shameless, both of you." My heart tightened. I forced myself upright against the pillows and called toward the door. "Mom, come help me into the wheelchair. I'll talk to Liam myself." Mom came into the bedroom. When she saw me trying to sit up, her face was still dark with anger. I simply reached for her and wrapped my arms around her waist. "Mom," I whispered, "please. Think of it as helping me settle one last regret." Her eyes reddened instantly. Still, because she had always loved me more than anything, she went to the vanity, brought me lipstick and my wig, and helped me into my down coat. The moment she wheeled me out, Liam frowned. "What's wrong with you? You were spoiled when we were kids, and now you're still acting like this as an adult. It's just a broken leg. Your mother is getting older, and you're still making her wait on you hand and foot?" I looked at the disgust on his face and smiled faintly. "The doctor said the fracture is serious. I'm not supposed to put weight on it for a while." As soon as I finished speaking, Vanessa, standing beside Liam, gave me an apologetic smile. "Claire, don't take it personally. Liam has just gotten used to being blunt after living overseas for so long." Then she tilted her head toward him, her tone sweet. "He's like this with everyone except me." I lowered my eyes for a second. Liam was cold to everyone. That much was true. But he had never been cold to me. Not before. I pressed that thought down before it could show on my face and looked calmly at Vanessa. "You really want me to go with you to choose a wedding planner? If you need me there, I'll go." Vanessa nodded at once. "Of course. We really do." After that, I exchanged a few polite words with them before seeing them out. That night, Liam called me. He said I should go with them to meet the wedding planner the next day. My fingers tightened around the phone. Part of me was greedy for the sound of his voice. Another part of me was almost afraid of it. After all, it had been 8 years since I had heard him like this, alone, on the other end of the line. 8 years ago, I used to hide under the covers every night and fall asleep listening to his low, warm voice. But just as I slipped into the memory, a woman's voice sounded on his end. "Liam, come dry my hair for me." I snapped back to myself. "Okay," I murmured quickly. The moment Liam heard my answer, he hung up. I listened to the empty beeps until they ended. Only then did the tears come. I had known this would happen. I had prepared myself for it. But seeing it, hearing it, knowing with absolute clarity that Liam belonged to someone else now still hurt more than I could admit. Liam had told me to meet him at 10 the next morning. Because I was nervous, I asked Mom to take me downstairs at 9:30. But I waited until noon and Liam never came. When I called him, he hung up. Mom asked me several times to go home. I refused. This trip had taken almost everything I had left. After this, I might never have the strength to leave the house again. Thankfully, at 1 in the afternoon, Liam finally called and said they were downstairs. My mother was furious. It took me a long time to calm her down, before she managed to keep her expression neutral. The moment I got into the car, Vanessa turned to me with a coy little smile. Sorry, Claire. Liam got a little carried away last night. I couldn't get out of bed this morning. My hand tightened slightly against my coat. Liam folded my wheelchair and put it away, then got into the driver's seat. Through the rearview mirror, he glanced at me once. Why are you explaining so much to her? He said coldly. I turned my face toward the window and waved calmly at my mother. Liam drove fast. The car lurched so badly I thought I might throw up, but I swallowed it down in silence. It reminded me of the year he got his license. Back then, he would often borrow his father's car and take me out. He knew I got carsick, so he always drove carefully, slowing before every turn and braking so gently I barely felt it. I used to feel sick in taxis and buses. Never in Liam's car. Then Liam slammed on the brakes again. My body gave out. I crashed hard against the back seat, my stomach twisting violently. A small sound escaped before I could stop it. When Liam heard me, he sneered. Claire, you don't actually think I'm still going to take care of you the way I did 8 years ago, do you? No sudden stops. No sharp turns. No hard braking. I wiped the dampness from the corner of my eye and said softly, No, you should take care of Vanessa now. She's your girlfriend. Liam gave another cold laugh. You're right. Then he stepped harder on the gas. My back slammed into the seat again. Pain shot up my spine, sharp enough to steal my breath. But I still smiled. Hatred was fine. At least while I was still alive, some part of me still mattered enough for him to hate. It did not take long for us to reach the restaurant. When we got out, Liam carried me from the car. The moment I was back in his arms, I almost failed to hold myself together. For one brief second, I could smell the familiar scent of him, clean soap and winter air. My fingers curled against my palm, but I did not dare touch him. Liam carried me out quickly, and set me into the wheelchair just as quickly. Because the second he put me down, he turned to Vanessa and asked for wet wipes. Then he scrubbed his hands hard. Vanessa gave me an awkward smile from the side. Sorry, Claire. Liam's a clean freak. If any woman other than me touches him, he gets uncomfortable. I lowered my head and pressed my lips together, pretending I had not seen what he did or heard what she said. After that, I let Liam and Vanessa push me into the restaurant, walking arm in arm behind me. As soon as we sat down, Liam picked up the menu and ordered several heavy, spicy dishes. Listening to the server repeat the order, I quietly lowered my eyes. I had never been able to eat spicy food. Neither had Liam. So it was obvious who he was ordering for. I did not try to make things hard on myself. In my current condition, even ordinary food was difficult. There was no way I could handle anything that rich or hot. So I asked the server to add a plain vegetable soup for me. For some reason, Liam suddenly lost his temper. You're already skin and bones, Liam snapped. And you're still trying to diet? For one foolish second, the concern in his voice caught me off guard. Then I smiled. Evan likes me thinner. Evan was the man Margaret had found for me 8 years ago. The one who helped me stage the fake affair. After Liam left the country in anger, I never saw Evan again. The moment Liam heard his name, his face went cold. Vanessa, sitting beside him, immediately gave me a soft smile. Claire, don't misunderstand. Liam is a doctor now. He gets upset whenever he sees people harming their health just to lose weight. When we were overseas, I tried dieting more than once, and he scolded me every time. As she spoke, she turned to Liam with an affectionate smile. Right, Liam? But Liam did not look at her. He stood abruptly, shoving his chair back. I'm going to the restroom. Then he walked off without another word. He did not look at me. He did not look at Vanessa either. I watched his back disappear down the hall. Had I ruined things again? Ruined Liam's new life. Ruined the love he had finally found after me. Guilt settled heavily in my chest. Across the table, Vanessa suddenly picked up a glass of hot water and threw it straight in my face. You little bitch, she hissed. Do you think I'm stupid? You've been playing weak and helpless all day just to pull Liam back in. The water stung my face. Heat spread across my skin. I tightened my fingers against the edge of my coat and said quietly, I'm sorry. If I made you uncomfortable, I apologize. Vanessa only sneered. Then she came around the table and slapped me across the face. You think pretending you can barely walk will make Liam come running back to you? Let me tell you something. Liam is mine. He will be mine for the rest of his life. Don't think you can steal him just because you were his first love. My cheek burned until it went numb. I could endure the hot water. After all, I was the one who had shamelessly chased after the last bit of warmth Liam might still give me. But she had no right to hit me. So without thinking, I pushed her away. Vanessa, lay a hand on me again and I'll call the police. The moment the words left my mouth, Vanessa suddenly dropped to the floor. Then she screamed. My stomach. Help me. Someone help. She attacked me. I'm pregnant. I stared at her on the floor, then looked down at my own hands. I had been sick for 8 years. Getting dressed exhausted me. Some days, I could not even hold a glass of water steady. There was no way I had enough strength to knock Vanessa down. When I pushed her just now, I only meant to stop her from hitting me again. But somehow, she had thrown herself to the floor. Before I could make sense of it, Liam appeared at the edge of the dining room. The instant he saw Vanessa on the floor, he rushed to her side. Vanessa? Vanessa, what happened? Vanessa burst into tears and clutched his shirt. Liam, save me. Please save our baby. Claire. Claire tried to kill me. The second you left, she started insulting me. She said you were nothing but trash she had thrown away. She said that if she ever wanted you back, you would crawl to her like a dog. I couldn't take it. I really couldn't. So I threw a glass of water at her. But that only made her angrier. She cursed me. She called me a vicious little bitch. She called me a slut. She said all I knew how to do was pick up men she didn't want anymore. Chapter 6. I lost control and slapped her, Vanessa sobbed. Then she got angry and shoved me. You know I'm pregnant. You know I'm not strong. I can't handle even the smallest fall. I sat there frozen, staring at her. My lips moved several times before I finally managed to speak. Liam, listen to me. That's not what happened. I really didn't do that. But Liam exploded. Claire, how can you be this vicious? His eyes were red with fury. 8 years ago, you cheated on me without a shred of shame. Now 8 years later, the second I'm about to get married, you decide you want me back and attack my fiancé? He stepped toward me. You laid a hand on my woman, didn't you? Then today, you can find out what it feels like when someone lays a hand on mine. With that, he kicked my wheelchair hard. Once. Twice. Again and again. Then he grabbed the handles and shoved it backward with brutal force. The wheelchair slammed into the dining table. Bowls crashed to the floor and shattered. The table tipped over. So did I. My head struck the corner of the table. For a moment, the whole world went white. Then blood ran down my face. My ears rang. My body began to shake uncontrollably, but Liam did not look at me once. He only rushed back to Vanessa and gathered her into his arms. As she cried against him, he kissed the corner of her mouth again and again, frantic and gentle. It's okay. It's okay. Don't cry. I'm taking you to the hospital now. Then, without sparing me another glance, he carried Vanessa toward the door. I watched Vanessa's triumphant smile over his shoulder. I watched Liam walk away. And suddenly I laughed. I laughed until tears blurred everything. It made me think of the year we were 18, when a man on the bus groped me. Back then, Liam was still reckless, fierce, and impossible to stop once anger took hold of him. He grabbed that man, who was a full head taller and much stronger than him, and hit him like a wild thing. Punch after punch landed on the man's face. You piece of garbage. You dare touch my girl? I'll kill you. Everyone on the bus was terrified. Only I was crying as I clung to Liam's arm, begging him to stop. Only then did he finally let go. Back then, I was Liam's girl. So he protected me with everything he had. Now the person in his heart was someone else. So he protected her with everything he had, even if the person he hurt was me. The servers gathered around in a nervous circle. Then the police arrived. The moment I saw them, the last of my strength seemed to leave me. I clutched one officer's hand and said, "Please tell my mother not to pursue this. Tell her this was my choice. Tell her I'm sorry. I don't think I can stay with her anymore." My chest felt tight and hollow, but strangely, I no longer felt regret. I had fought cancer for 8 years. I had waited for Liam for 8 years. My greatest wish had only been to see him one more time. Now I had. That was enough. Goodbye, Liam. I love you. The emergency room at City First Hospital smelled of industrial pine cleaner, wet wool, and the sharp metallic tang of dried blood. 5. When Helen Winters pushed through the sliding double doors, her umbrella was still dripping, leaving a dark, erratic trail of water across the white linoleum. Her face was gray. Her lips pressed so tightly together they had turned white. Where is she? Helen's voice was low, but it cut through the hum of the admitting desk like a physical blade. Where is my daughter? A young nurse in blue scrubs looked up, startled by the sheer, cold desperation in the older woman's eyes. Name, please? Claire Winters. She was brought in by ambulance from the Jade Garden restaurant. The nurse's fingers hovered over her keyboard for a fraction of a second before her expression softened into something resembling pity, a look Helen had grown to despise over the last 8 years. She's in Trauma Bay 3. The doctors are currently. Helen didn't wait for her to finish. She knew the layout of this hospital better than the back of her own hand. For nearly a decade, this building had been their second home. She bypassed the security desk, her boots squeaking against the polished floor, and threw back the heavy plastic curtain of Trauma 3. Inside, the light was blindingly bright, casting a stark, bluish hue over the thin figure on the gurney. Claire was still wearing her heavy down coat, but the front of it was dark and wet, soaked through with soup and blood. A young resident was holding a sterile gauze pad against her temple, where a jagged 2-inch laceration was still sluggishly oozing dark red. Her wig had fallen off during the struggle, or the transport. It lay crumpled on the stainless steel counter in the corner like a dead animal. Beneath it, her bare scalp was pale, almost translucent, with the delicate blue map of her veins tracing along her skull. Claire, Helen whispered, the anger that had carried her through the rain instantly evaporating, leaving only a hollow, bottomless grief. Claire's eyes fluttered open. They were bloodshot, the pupils slightly uneven from the concussion. But when she saw her mother, she tried to stretch her cracked lips into a small, reassuring smile. Mom, she breathed, her voice barely a rattle in her throat. I told them not to call you. Shut up, Helen said, her voice cracking as she dropped her wet umbrella and took her daughter's cold, needle-scarred hand. Just shut up, Claire. You promised me. You promised you wouldn't let him hurt you again. He didn't mean to, Claire murmured, her gaze drifting toward the acoustic tiles on the ceiling. He was just protecting his baby. The resident physician looked up from Claire's temple, his brow furrowed. Are you the mother? I need you to sign an emergency authorization for a CT scan. There's a laceration, but the more pressing issue is her neurological response. She's showing signs of a moderate concussion, and given her advanced medical history, we need to ensure there's no internal hemorrhaging. Helen took the clipboard from the doctor, her hand shaking so violently the pen clattered against the metal frame. She signed her name, Helen Winters, with a single jagged stroke. Is the other party here? The resident asked quietly, looking at the blood on Claire's face. The police officer outside said there was an altercation at the restaurant. The other party, Helen said, her voice dropping into a register that made the young doctor take a step back, is currently in the maternity ward, playing the victim. 3 floors up, the private waiting room of the obstetrics and gynecology department was quiet, decorated in soft, pastel pinks and blues designed to soothe anxious parents. Liam Hayes sat on the edge of a vinyl armchair, his fingers locked together so tightly his knuckles were white. His coat was damp, his chest still heaving with a residual, frantic adrenaline. Every few seconds, his eyes would dart to the closed oak door of exam room 4, where Vanessa was being examined by the on-call obstetrician. You piece of garbage. You dare touch my girl? I'll kill you. The words of his 18-year-old self echoed through his mind, loud and accusing. 8 years ago, he would have torn the world apart to keep Claire from crying. He had spent nearly 3,000 days overseas, nursing a cold, hard ember of hatred in his chest, convincing himself that she was a shallow, faithless creature who had discarded their love like old trash. He had repeated that lie to himself every night until it became his armor. But when he saw her today, pale and small in that wheelchair, a strange, suffocating weight had settled over his chest. She looked so thin, almost ghost-like, as if a strong gust of wind might blow her away. And those needle marks. Liam. The door to exam room 4 opened. Dr. Sarah Vance, an older woman with sharp, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, stepped out, pulling off her latex gloves. Liam stood up instantly. Dr. Vance. How is she? Is the baby okay? Dr. Vance looked at him for a long, quiet moment, her expression unreadable. She adjusted her glasses, then glanced down at the chart in her hand. Mr. Hayes, your fiancé is perfectly fine. There are no signs of physical trauma. No bruising, no abrasions, and certainly no internal distress. Liam let out a long breath, his shoulders dropping. Thank God. And the baby? The fall. She said she was pushed. Mr. Hayes, Dr. Vance said, her voice dropping into a flat, professional tone that held no warmth whatsoever. I don't know what kind of game your fiancé is playing, but we ran her blood work and performed a transvaginal ultrasound. There is no gestational sac. Her HCG levels are less than 5 milli-international units per milliliter. Liam blinked, the words failing to register in his brain. What? I don't understand. She is not pregnant, Dr. Vance said clearly. And based on her medical history and her current hormone levels, she hasn't been pregnant any time recently. There was never a baby, Mr. Hayes. The corridor seemed to tilt slightly. The soft, pastel-colored walls of the waiting room blurred, the quiet hum of the air conditioning suddenly sounding like a roaring waterfall in Liam's ears. Never a baby, he repeated, his voice hollow. But she showed me the test. She had a report from the clinic in Chicago. Anyone with a printer in 5 minutes can generate a report, Mr. Hayes, Dr. Vance said, her tone tinged with a faint trace of disgust. I suggest you have a private conversation with your fiancé. But before you do, there are 2 police officers waiting for you in the lobby. They have some questions regarding an incident at the Jade Garden restaurant. Before Liam could move, the double doors of the maternity ward swung open with a Loud metallic clang. Two police officers in navy blue uniforms stepped through, their faces grim. Behind them walked Helen Winters. She was no longer crying. She looked tall, her shoulders squared, her eyes fixed on Liam with a hatred so pure, so absolute, that it made him take an involuntary step backward. Liam Hayes, the older officer said, reaching for the leather holster at his hip. We've just reviewed the security footage from the Jade Garden. You need to come with us. The security office on the basement level of the restaurant was small, smelling of stale coffee and hot electronic circuit boards. Liam stood in the center of the cramped room, his hands cuffed behind his back. The metal of the restraints was cold against his wrists, but he barely felt it. His eyes were glued to the 19-inch monitor on the wall, where the security manager had paused the recording. Watch, the police officer said, pressing the play button. On the screen, the dining room of the Jade Garden was clearly visible in high-definition color. The camera angle was high, looking down directly at the table where Liam, Vanessa, and Claire had been sitting. Liam watched himself stand up and walk toward the restroom corridor, his back disappearing from the frame. The moment he left, the video showed Vanessa's expression change. The sweet, gentle smile she had worn all afternoon vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating look that Liam had never seen on her face before. She picked up her glass of hot water, the steam still rising from it, and threw it directly into Claire's face. Liam's breath caught in his throat. He saw Claire flinch, her shoulders shaking, as the water ran down her cheeks, but she didn't move. She didn't shout. He only sat there, her head slightly lowered, her fingers clutching her coat. Then Vanessa stood up. She walked around the table, her mouth moving rapidly as she spoke to Claire. Suddenly, she raised her hand and delivered a hard, stinging slap across Claire's face. My God, Liam whispered, his chest tightening until he could barely breathe. Vanessa. On the screen, Claire raised her hands, trying to block a second blow. She pushed Vanessa's hands away, a weak, defensive gesture that held no real force. But the moment Claire's fingers made contact with her sleeves, Vanessa's face twisted into a theatrical expression of horror. She threw herself backward, landing deliberately on the carpeted floor, and began to scream, her mouth wide, her hands clutching her stomach. A second later, Liam appeared in the frame. He saw himself rush to Vanessa's side, his face filled with panic and rage. He saw Vanessa whispering into his ear, pointing her finger at the pale girl in the wheelchair. And then he saw the kick. On the high-definition monitor, the violence of his own action was brutal, sickeningly clear. He saw himself kick the wheelchair once, twice his foot, striking the metal frame with enough force to dent it. He saw himself grab the handles and shove the chair backward into the mahogany table. He watched Claire's head strike the corner of the wood. He watched her limp body slide to the floor, her wig falling away to reveal the bare, pale skin beneath. A dark, thick stain began to spread across the white tablecloth, dripping onto her ruined coat. And then he watched himself pick up Vanessa, cradle her in his arms and walk out of the restaurant without looking back even once. The victim, the officer said, shutting off the monitor and turning to Liam, is currently in the ICU. Her mother has refused to file charges for the initial altercation, but the state is pursuing charges of felony assault and reckless endangerment against you, Mr. Hayes. Do you have anything to say? Liam didn't answer. He dropped to his knees, his forehead striking the cold linoleum of the security office floor. The metal of the handcuffs bit into his wrists, but the pain was nothing compared to the howling, dark void that had just opened up in his chest. Claire, he choked out, the name tearing at his throat like broken glass. Claire, what have I done? The police department agreed to delay Liam's formal booking by 2 hours under the strict supervision of an officer, after Helen Winters made a direct request to the precinct captain. I don't want him in a cell yet, Helen had said, her voice deadpan. I want him to see what he built. They met in the small, sterile consultation room adjacent to the ICU. The room was quiet, save for the distant, rhythmic beeping of the monitors through the glass partition. Helen sat at the small table, a worn yellowed cardboard box resting in front of her. Liam was escorted in, his hands still cuffed, his face pale and tear-stained. The police officer stood by the door, his arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the wall. Sit down, Liam, Helen said, her voice eerily calm. Liam sat, his knees trembling. Mrs. Winters. Helen. I'm sorry. I swear to God I didn't know. Vanessa, she lied to me. She told me she was pregnant. Told me Claire. I don't care about Vanessa, Helen interrupted, her voice dropping into a quiet, frozen register. She's a parasite. She saw a weak, bitter man with a good salary and she took advantage of him. That's her nature. But you grew up in this house, Liam. You slept under our roof. You ate at our table. She reached into the cardboard box and pulled out a thick stack of medical files, dropping them onto the table with a dull thud. Do you know what this is? She asked. Liam stared at the papers. The top page was stamped with the logo of the city. Oncology Center. The date was October 14th, 8 years ago. The day before they broke up. Claire was 19, Helen said, her fingers tracing the edge of the paper. She had just found a small lump in her neck. She thought it was a swollen gland. From a cold. We went to the clinic together, just the two of us, while you were at the library studying for your entrance exams. She flipped the page. Stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma. Helen read aloud, her voice steady, almost mechanical. The doctor said the prognosis was good, but she needed to start chemotherapy immediately. He said she couldn't travel. He said she couldn't leave the country. Liam's breath caught. No, she told me she didn't want to go with me. Said she was tired of me. She said she wanted to stay here with Evan. Your mother, Helen said, her eyes drilling into his, came to our house that very night. She didn't even wait for the pathology report to be finalized. Knelt in front of Claire's bed, right where you stood 3 days ago, and she begged her. Helen's voice finally trembled, a single, hot tear escaping her eye and running down her cheek. She said, Claire, if Liam finds out you have cancer, he'll never leave. He'll throw away his future, his degree, his life, just to sit by your hospital bed. Please let him go. Make him hate you. It's the only way. Liam stared at her, the room spinning. My mother? Claire loved you more than her own life, Liam, Helen said, her hand slamming down on the stack of files. She was 19 years old. She was terrified of dying. She was throwing up every morning from the preliminary drugs, and she had to put on a show for you. She had to pretend to kiss another boy in the courtyard. She had to listen to you scream at her, listen to you call her a whore, and she had to smile and tell you she didn't care. She pushed the box toward him. For 8 years, Helen sobbed, her composure finally breaking. She sat in that room. She lost her hair. She lost her weight. She had 3 major surgeries that almost killed her. And every time she woke up from the anesthesia, she would look at your picture and say, Mom, is Liam doing well overseas? Is he a doctor yet? Liam couldn't breathe. The air in his lungs felt like liquid fire. He reached out with his cuffed hands, trying to touch the medical files, but his fingers shook so violently he could only scatter them across the table. He saw the receipts, the bills for the drugs, the letters from the oncology department. And then near the bottom of the box, he saw a small, cheap plastic phone with a cracked screen. It was the phone he had thrown at her feet on the day he left for the airport. She kept it, Helen whispered, her shoulders shaking. She saved her allowance for 2 years just to pay a repair shop to retrieve the photos from the hard drive. She couldn't afford to fix the screen, but she kept the battery charged. Every night before her chemo sessions, she would turn it on and look at the photos of you two at the lake. Liam let out a sound, a high, broken animal cry that echoed through the small consultation room. He leaned his head against the cold wood of the table, his body shaking with a grief so violent it felt like his ribs were cracking. I'm sorry, he wept, his voice muffled by the wood. I'm sorry, Claire. I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me, Helen said, standing up and looking down at him with cold, empty eyes. Your mother is downstairs in the lobby. She came to see if you were out of jail yet. I think you should go talk to her. Margaret Hayes was pacing the polished floor of the hospital lobby, her leather handbag clutched tightly against her stomach. When she saw Liam emerge from the elevator corridor flanked by a police officer, her face lit up with relief. Liam, she cried, rushing forward. Oh, thank God. I've already spoken to the lawyer. He says we can post bail by tonight. This is all just a misunderstanding, honey. That Winters girl, she always was a troublemaker. Even when you were kids. She stopped. The look on Liam's face made the words die in her throat. His eyes were completely bloodshot, his face swollen and pale. He didn't look like her son anymore. He looked like a ghost that had been dragged up from the grave. Liam, she whispered, her hand reaching out to touch his sleeve. What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Why did you do it? Liam's voice was very quiet, but it carried a strange, vibrating intensity that made the surrounding people in the lobby turn to look. Margaret blinked, her expression faltering. What? What are you talking about? Honey. 8 years ago, Liam said, his voice rising, cracking with a rage that had been built on 8 years of lies. The day before I left. Why did you go to Claire's house? Margaret's face went entirely white. She took a step back, her handbag slipping from her fingers and hitting the floor with a soft plastic click. Liam, I don't know what Helen Winters told you, but she's lying. She's always been jealous of your success. She's not lying. Liam roared, his voice exploding through the quiet lobby. Several security guards instantly moved toward them, but the police officer beside Liam waved them off with a shake of his head. I saw the files, Mom. Liam sobbed, the tears running hot down his cheeks. I saw the diagnosis. October 14th. She had cancer. She was dying. And you went to her room and begged her to make me hate her. I did it for you. Margaret shrieked, her own tears finally spilling over as she took a defensive step forward. Look at her, Liam. Look at her family. They're poor, they're sick. They would have dragged you down to the gutter. With them. You had a full scholarship to Edinburgh. You were going to be a surgeon. If you had stayed, you would have spent your 20s changing her diapers and watching her rot. She grabbed him by the arms, her fingers digging through his coat. I saved your life, Liam. I gave you a career. I gave you Vanessa. She's from a good family. Her father is a dean. Vanessa, Liam said, a cold, mocking laugh escaping his lips, is not pregnant, Mom. She never was. She lied to me for 2 years just to keep me from coming back to see Claire. Margaret froze, her jaw dropping. What? You didn't save my life, Liam said, his voice dropping into a whisper that was far more terrifying than his shout. You turned me into a monster. For 8 years, I hated the only girl who ever loved me. I spent 8 years wishing she was dead, and then today, I kicked her out of her wheelchair. He leaned in close, his eyes reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights of the ceiling. If she dies, Mom, he whispered, I will never speak to you again. I will never look at your face. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you die alone in that big house you built for me. Before Margaret could speak, the police officer clarified the reality. Mr. Hayes, the bail hearing is set for tomorrow morning. You need to come with me back to the precinct for processing. Liam didn't look back at his mother as they led him away. Margaret stood alone in the center of the busy lobby, her handbag lying forgotten at her feet, her hands clutching her chest as she watched her only son disappear into the back of a police cruiser. 3 days later, the state prosecutor agreed to a temporary medical release for Liam Hayes under a high-value property bond posted by his father, who had returned from Chicago the moment he heard the news. Liam didn't go home. He didn't change his clothes. He walked straight from the courthouse back to City First Hospital. The intensive care unit was quiet. When he reached room 12, Helen Winters was standing outside, looking through the glass window. Her face was incredibly tired, the dark circles under her eyes looking like old bruises. Liam stopped 3 feet away, his head lowered. Is she? The internal bleeding has stopped, Helen said quietly, her voice devoid of the anger from 3 days ago. But the oncologist says the cancer has spread to her meninges. The head trauma accelerated the systemic failure. She has maybe 48 hours. She turned her head to look at him. She's been asking for you, Liam. Liam's heart stopped. For me? But I hurt her. Claire has never known how to hate you, Helen said, her hand reaching for the metal door handle. Go in. But if you make her cry, Liam, I will kill you. Myself. Liam pushed the door open, the soft click of the latch sounding like a gunshot. In the quiet room, the blinds were drawn, but a single sliver of orange afternoon light filtered through the gap, casting a long, warm bar across the white sheets of the bed. Claire was lying very still. She was no longer wearing the heavy down coat. She was in a simple blue hospital gown, her thin arms resting on top of the blanket. Her head was bandaged, a small white patch covering the temple, where he had crashed her into the wood. Her face was so pale it was almost blue, but when she heard the door open, she slowly turned her head. Her eyes were clear. Liam, she whispered, her voice like the rustle of dry leaves in autumn. Liam dropped to his knees beside the bed, his hand reaching out to grasp the metal safety rail. He didn't dare touch her skin. He felt too dirty, too heavy, too real to make contact with something so delicate. Claire, he choked out, his shoulders shaking as the tears began to fall again. Claire, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm a monster. I should have known. I should have looked closer. Claire slowly moved her hand across the sheet, her thin fingers trembling as they reached for his head. She pressed her palm against his hair, her touch so light, so warm, that it made his chest ache with a physical pain. Don't cry, she said softly. It's okay, Liam. I'm not angry. Why didn't you tell me? Liam wept, his forehead resting against the edge of the mattress. Why did you let me hate you for 8 years? I could have stayed. We could have fought it together. Because you were 18, Claire whispered, her gaze drifting toward the orange light on the wall. You were so young, Liam. You had so many dreams. If you had stayed, you would have watched me lose my hair. You would have watched me cry every night. I didn't want you to remember me like this. She turned her head, her eyes fixed on his with a deep, infinite warmth that made the last 8 years of bitterness melt away like snow in the sun. I wanted you to remember me the way I was at the lake, with the wind in my hair, laughing because you couldn't catch the fish. I still have the photos, Liam sobbed, his hand finally reaching up to wrap around her small, cold fingers. Claire, I kept them too. I never forgot. I only pretended to hate you because it was the only way I could survive. Without you. I know, she said quietly. I knew. She closed her eyes for a long moment, her breathing shallow and uneven. The heart monitor beside the bed beeped, a slow, steady rhythm that seemed to be counting down the remaining seconds of the afternoon. Liam, she called out softly, her eyes opening again, looking slightly unfocused. I'm here, he said, pressing his face against her hand. I'm right here. Claire. Can you take me to see the sunset? She asked, her voice dropping into a childlike whisper. The hospital window is too small. I want to see the sky. Liam looked at the 4 lines, the oxygen tube and the heart monitor. He knew what the doctors would say. He knew that moving her from this room was a violation of every medical protocol in the building. But he also knew that he was a doctor. And he knew there was nothing left to treat. Okay, he said. He stood up, his movements slow, deliberate, and incredibly gentle. He didn't use the wheelchair this time. He reached under her shoulders and her knees, lifting her from the white sheets as if she were made of spun glass. She was so light, hardly heavier than a child, her head resting naturally against his collarbone, her small hand clutching the front of his shirt. He carried her out of the room, past the consultation room, and into the corridor. Helen Winters was standing by the desk. When she saw him carrying Claire, her eyes widened, her hand reaching for her mouth. But she didn't stop him. She only followed them in silence, her head lowered, her boots squeaking softly against the linoleum. They took the private elevator to the top floor, the mechanical access roof that looked out over the entire city. The air on the roof was cold, carrying the sharp, clean scent of the coming winter, and the sky was a brilliant, burning canvas of orange, purple, and gold, the sun sinking slowly behind the gray skyline of the city. Liam walked to the edge of the concrete parapet, his body shielding her from the wind. Claire looked out at the sky, her eyes reflecting the brilliant, dying light of the sun. A small, peaceful smile touched her mouth, the first real smile he had seen on her face in 8 years. It's beautiful, Liam, she whispered. Yes, he said, his voice cracking as he pressed his cheek against her forehead. It's beautiful, Claire. Do you remember the ring? She asked, her voice growing fainter, almost lost in the wind. I have it, Liam said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out the small, simple silver band he had carried with him to Edinburgh, the one he had thrown at her feet in the rain. He had retrieved it from the pavement that day after she walked away. He slid the ring onto her thin, pale finger. It was loose now, but it stayed. Claire looked at the silver band on her hand, her eyes shining with a quiet, final joy. Thank you, Liam, she whispered. I think I'm tired now. Go to sleep, Claire, Liam said, his tears falling onto her cheek, warm against her cold skin. I'll hold you. I won't let you fall. I love you, Liam, she murmured, her head sinking slightly lower against his shoulder. I love you, Claire, he whispered back. I've always loved you. The sun slipped below the horizon, casting a long, cool shadow over the roof. The hand clutching his shirt slowly loosened, her fingers sliding away, falling gently against the wool of his coat. Her breathing stopped, not with a gasp or a struggle, but like a candle being softly blown out in a quiet room. Liam didn't move. He stood on the roof of the hospital, holding the girl he loved against his chest, watching the gray shadow of the night slowly swallow the city. Behind him, Helen Winters dropped to her knees on the cold concrete, her face buried in her hands, her quiet, broken sobs lost in the wind. Liam looked down at Claire's face. She looked peaceful, as if she were only sleeping, the silver ring on her finger catching the last, faint glimmer of the twilight. He closed his eyes, his heart beating a slow, hollow rhythm against her still chest. He had his career. He had his degree. He had his future. But as the first winter snow began to fall, dusting her hair with white, Liam Hayes knew that he would spend the rest of his life standing on this roof, in the cold, waiting for a girl who would never wake up again.